everyone. Welcome back to the Sports Degenerates podcast. I am Tyler DeRosa. As always, got my good buddy Matt Holderman. And this week, we have a very special episode. We are doing a fantasy football special. I know it's a little weird because usually people do fantasy football specials at the beginning of fantasy football season, but we're doing it going into playoffs. And today we have a couple of our good friends. We consider them the Degenerates. We have Quint Kimmel and Chris Deshay. Chris Shea, how we doing, guys?
Very good. Appreciate you for having me.
I can't complain personally, but
yeah. So obviously Matt Holderman as well. Matt, how you doing?
Doing good. Can't wait to talk about some fantasy. Been waiting, weeks or even months to talk about fantasy on this podcast exclusively. So should be a good time.
Yeah. And so obviously, like I said, we're going into the playoffs right now, and a lot of 8-person leagues and ESPN leagues, each round is 2 weeks. So the playoffs are literally about to start tonight. We're recording this Thursday night, and I'm also in a Yahoo league that doesn't start for another 2 weeks, but it's almost time to get going. Now I want to start with some stardom sit-ems. Me and Matt were coming up with a few different names. Now I want to ask you guys, we're going to go down the list. We're going to let's shoot the crap here a little bit. A stardom sit-em, number one on our list right now is Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Sit him.
Sit him?
Sit him. Just sit him.
How come?
He's figured it out. That's all.
You think so?
He's figured it out. They got him. I mean, I put him as one of my top 5 fraud QBs going into the year, and I just got to say, I feel kind of vindicated right now. So.
All right. Quint, what do you say?
I don't know.
Lamar Jackson, start and sit him.
I'm partial because I got him in one of my leagues, but I'm going to say start him. I still like the matchups that he has. I feel like with a player like Lamar, even though, like Deshay said, he's quote unquote figured out, I think he's still got the potential to where like he can put up those 40-point games with the other quarterbacks.
Yeah, Holderman, what do you think?
Yeah, it's tough. I kind of fall right in between what Quint and Chris say. Like, I think he is figured out for sure. But just a couple days ago, we saw him have almost 100 game. Again, that was against the Cowboys. So like, whatever, big deal. Anyone could do that. We could all do that if we tried. But going up against Cleveland, like they don't have the best defense. They're looking a little better overall. But yeah, I mean, I like Lamar's chances, but at the same time, don't want to get too high on him. He's had a very down year based on the expectations. And yeah, I don't know if you could pick it up back to what we expect necessarily. So depends on the size of your league if you're going to start him or sit him.
Personally, I'm kind of torn here because looking at ESPN here down the line, he hasn't had a bad season. He almost switches off every other week. He has like a 25 point game. And down the stretch here, the next 4 weeks for ESPN playoffs, he has Cleveland, Jacksonville, the Giants, who are starting to turn it on, and Cincinnati. All really good matchups for him. And like Matt said, he just had a 25-point game against Dallas. Again, it's not that hard to do that against Dallas, but it also might not be that hard to do it against these other teams. So I'm a little torn personally. I picked him up in one of my leagues. I'm having him on my bench right now, and I'm trying to choose between Tom Brady and Lamar for this coming week. What do you guys think on that?
Who are the Bucks playing this week?
They're going to get against
Vikings, right?
Yeah, Vikings. Yeah. Vikings.
I would take Tom
Brady over Lamar.
Yeah,
all right. So it seems
Brady.
like the overall consensus is sit Lamar Jackson then, right?
for this week. I mean, personally for me going forward, but that's just me.
So on that note, I say you should start Lamar Jackson then, Tyler, since that league that he has Lamar, he's up against me.
All right, you're a little biased here. You're a little biased here, Holderman.
No, look at Lamar. He's averaging a cool 20 points a game. Tom Brady's old and washed, you know.
All right. Now let's go to the other side of the field for this past week. A stardom sit-em that everybody, this is weird saying this. You would never say this any other season. Zeke. Deshay?
I don't think Zeke's it. I don't know. I mean, no, he just hasn't really done anything, especially with Dak out. Like, it's not looking good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Zeke's been fed a little too much. You know, I think he's eating a little too
starting to look
good.
like Eddie Lacy out there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go that far. He might
be on that road though. He's trending upwards, so we'll see.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he's had 2 good games, decent games in the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. He had a 19-point game against Minnesota and a 13-point game this past week against Dallas. But before that, he didn't crack double digits. Last time he cracked double digits was week 6. I'm sitting Zeke personally. I don't trust him. I already traded him in one of my other leagues. Quint, what do you think?
So to rip a term from Chris, I'm going to say without Dak, with a down offensive line in general, I would say you definitely want to sit Zeke. I don't think there's really any other option. I mean,
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
so tough.
I agree.
mean,
Now, Holderman, what about?
yeah, even in a bigger league, I'm in like a 16-person league, I think is the size of it. And he was my first round draft pick in that league. I'm sure a bunch of people can relate to that who might be listening. But even in that league, a 16-person league, I have better running backs I've picked up off of waivers than him. Like, yes, he's projected to get more each week, but the weeks where he has like say 2.9, he had against Washington, 6.1 against Washington again a couple weeks ago. Actually, it was. Zeke is he's really just underwhelming a bunch, even in the bigger leagues. I mean, he's a sit him all day, every day. I think, unless he's going up against a really like the Jets.
exactly.
Yeah, it's weird to say that too, saying sit Zeke, because Zeke in the past, every year that he's been in the league, he's been one of the best fantasy running backs. And I picked him first in one of my leagues, and he started out playing like a number 1 draft pick, but
Yeah.
then he's just really fallen off ever since Dak got injured, because defenses know that Zeke is their number 1 weapon. They can just crack down on him. But another running back, this one is a tough one. Todd Gurley, me and Matt have talked about this. Todd Gurley hasn't gone 2 games without a touchdown in like his entire
like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And he just had a down game against New Orleans, which is kind of to be expected. This is a hard one. Deshae, what do you think?
Super tough.
Gurley, who is Gurley going up against?
So he's against the Chargers.
Yeah.
And I keep saying that's going to be a shootout, Falcons versus Chargers.
It should be, right?
It should be.
Yeah.
I mean, football, crazy things happen. It could be like 10-3.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think?
Gurley, he is kind of reliant on touchdowns, but he is used down in the red zone. I'd say he's worth like maybe a flex, or if you really got to reach like one of your top running backs. But I'd say he's worth, a shot.
What do you think, Quint?
I don't think he can be your number 1 option, but I definitely think a solid second running back and a solid flex for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of follow that. I mean, going with the trend that he hasn't had 2 games in a row without a touchdown for
He's due.
ever. He is due. It's only been a couple weeks that he's been without a touchdown, so he is due. And in a game where I think all of us could agree the final score could be 35-30, I think at least one of those touchdowns is going to go to Todd Gurley, especially if the Falcons could get in the red zone deep into it at the 5-yard line or closer.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're just going to hand it to Todd Gurley at that point.
Yeah.
What you gotta wonder if Anthony Lynn's lost the locker room at all out in LA. If the real Chargers are going to be playing inspired football at all. See if that defense shows up.
That's a good question, because they just got blown out by the Pats.
It's embarrassing.
They're not the Pats of old.
45.
Exactly.
You know what's crazy about that game? DraftKings had the Pats as underdogs for some reason. Yep.
I know.
Kind of crazy.
I don't know why they would do that, but
yeah, I don't know. I mean, that must have been a great bet for anybody that bet on the Patriots to take that game.
I had I had a parlay that a Pats player, someone not on the offense, score a touchdown, and I think who was it, McCourty? Yeah. He had that pick or whatever it was.
Yeah, it was they blocked a field goal, I believe, or something like that. Yeah.
Was that him?
That was
Gunner.
Either him or Gunner. Him or Gunner.
Yeah, one of the two.
Gunner had a return. I don't know. Anyways, I won the parlay thanks to the Pats or the Chargers special teams being trash. So
that's nice.
I was happy on Sunday.
Todd Gurley, I'm starting him. I'm actually personally literally starting him in one of my leagues. He's been kind of down the past few weeks, so against New Orleans, he had 3 points. New Orleans, he had 3 points. Against Las Vegas, he didn't play. And the week before that, he went against New Orleans again. So, and they're really the only team that has kept him bottled up and under double-digit points. The only other game that he's had under double digits was against Dallas, surprisingly. But that was when Dallas was actually playing a little better at the beginning of the season. So, I mean, he's facing the Chargers. I think he's going to get some goal line touches. I think he's going to have a bounce-back game for sure. He's my number 2 running back right now in this league. I'm starting James Robinson and Todd Gurley as my starting running backs. I'm trusting Gurley personally over Raheem Mostert. So,
yeah, I'm very similar to Tyler. I think actually very similar situation in the league. I have Gurley and Mostert, and I'm benching Mostert in favor of Todd Gurley this week. The thing to pay attention to is Todd is only projected to get like 10 points, I think, right now, either 10 or 11, which I think might tempt a lot of people. Oh, bench him. He hasn't been good lately, but that is a good point. He's been against New Orleans the last 2 times he's played. I don't think New Orleans has allowed any running back above 50 yards all year.
Yeah. All right. Now another running back, Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt started the season really, really well with when Nick Chubb was playing and when Nick Chubb wasn't playing. I see Quentin, you're making a face. What are you saying about
He's got Kareem. He's got Kareem.
I got Kareem in one league. Kareem has been a big disappointment to me. Especially with Chubb in the lineup. I don't trust Hunt enough. I mean, again, he's got that potential like Gurley. You can get lucky, but I don't think he's worth a flex, but I don't love the idea of starting Kareem Hunt.
I had Kareem Hunt on my team. Actually, I'm the one that traded you Kareem Hunt, and I loved Kareem Hunt all season. I was really high on Kareem Hunt, and just all of a sudden, the past few weeks, he's just nosedived and
off a cliff.
Exactly, it's kind of crazy. He was super consistent. You could count on him to get at least 15 points the first half of the season. Then second half of the season, he's died down. I think a big reason because of that is Baker Mayfield is starting to be able to throw the ball better here. Because the whole first half of the season, they were relying on the run. And now all of a sudden, Baker's starting to play a little better. He's actually learning how to be a competent quarterback. And I think that's a big reason. Deshae, what do you think?
I think, well, I haven't looked at the stats to see how he's been affected by Chubb's return. I mean, obviously, it must be significant. I'd say he's probably what Quinn's saying, like a flex, definitely. But he's also he was a decent handcuff option, with Chubb. So.
Okay.
I think it really depends how deep your league is and what your team is, really. If you're lacking running backs, then he's definitely worth it.
Yeah, I think bigger leagues, like 12 and up person leagues, start him. But otherwise, I'm saying no. Matt, what do you think?
I'd have to agree.
I say sit him at all costs. Sit him. The last 3 weeks, 9.1, 6.2, and then 8.7 points. And on top of that, like we said, Baker's throwing the ball better now. And Nick Chubb has had, I could actually pull up the stats, but 100-yard game after 100-yard game, basically. They're just going to start to rely on him more and more and more. He's going to be their go-to guy. Hunt's going to get less touches than he already has. And he still can't even break 10 points with the touches he's had. He's not going up. I just can't see it unless a miracle happens. Sit him at all costs if you want to win.
All right, and here's another one. Matt, me and you were arguing about this one, about if he should even be in the start and sit him. Julio Jones. So Julio's been pretty good this season. Julio just had 15 points against New Orleans. But I'm really torn on Julio personally because he's been inconsistent because he's had plenty of injuries. He's missed, I think, 3 or 4 games this season. Only 2 of them were consecutively. So he's just missed a few random games all season. I'm really torn on him. I'm not starting him this week because it's an 8-person league and I have a deep team, so I'm not starting him this week. But I think he's one, if you have a 10-person league, you're going to start him. But I'm a little torn on Julio. Deshae, what do you think?
He's going up against the Chargers, right?
Yeah.
Well, I got Ridley in one of my leagues, so I'm kind of a Ridley guy.
Yep.
Honestly, it just depends how deep your league is. Honestly, I think. How much? Do you know how much he's projected this week?
He's projected
17. It was. Yeah.
What is the Chargers defense ranked in fantasy for receivers?
Let's take a look.
Oddly, it's not bad against wide receivers. 5th in the league against wide receivers, which you wouldn't expect out of the Chargers.
Yeah, I'd probably sit him though. just based off that info, I'd sit him.
Yeah, Quint, what do you think?
I mean, I would say sit him. I think Ridley is definitely grown into Ryan's more favored target. I mean, again, like with Gurley, it's Julio. He has the potential to go off for those big games, but I think you sit him this week.
I agree. I think, you know what? I will say personally, I'm sitting him, but I think if this should be the week to start him if you want to. Personally, just because against the matchup, I think the Matt Ryan will be thrown all over the Chargers, even though they have a decent pass defense. And a big reason why I'm a little torn on Julio is just because of the fact that he has Calvin Ridley, like Quint was saying. So that's why I tend to steer away from Julio. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, so I say this week you have to start Julio Jones for that same reason as Todd Gurley against the Chargers. He's going to be scoring. That's what I think. It's tough. I mean, he does have Ridley taking touches from him, but it's weird. Like ESPN still projects like Julio every week more than Ridley. I'm kind of confused by that. I don't know why. I think they're at a level with each other. But yeah, Julio Jones, unless your league is like our league where there's only 8 of us, start him. Don't bench him unless you have Hopkins and Adams and whoever else. Like Tyler's lucky to have. So
yeah. All right, now another running back, Wayne Gallman on the Giants. He's been having a really good past few weeks, but I'm seeing a lot of like fantasy analysts right now are kind of down on him for this week against Arizona. Arizona has a decent run defense. He hasn't had a single digit game since week 6. He had 0 points, but ever since then he's had, at least in Yahoo, he's had 16, 14, 17, 20, 19, 16. So he's been tearing it up. Arizona has a middling defense. If you need a running back, I'm starting Wayne Gallman all day. Chris, what do you think?
So my concern is how are the defenses going to play Colt McCoy? Colt McCoy is getting the start. They're probably going to stack the box, pressure him to make the throws. How can he take the pressure? Can he take it off Gallman's? Can he perform to what he needs to do to make him not stack the box and actually play?
Yeah.
Be concerned about the pass. Maybe Colt McCoy is decent. He's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just really a toss-up how Colt McCoy plays to see how the defense reacts. I think Gallman's definitely maybe worth it, but I mean, honestly, I can't give a fair assessment because it's based off Colt McCoy and how the defense reacts to him.
Yeah. All right, Quint.
So I picked up Gallman in one of my leagues this week. I think I don't have him listed as one of my key pickups for this week, but I think I'm pretty bullish on Gallman. I think you need to go with him. Because it's not like McCoy is inexperienced. It's just he's not reliable.
Yeah.
So I would say go with Wayne Gallman, but if he ends up being the reason you lose, it's not my fault.
All right, that makes sense. Matt, what do you think?
yeah, similar to I think Todd Gurley we mentioned earlier. He's relied on touchdowns a little bit. Gallman has, fantasy points wise the last couple of weeks. He had 5 games in a row with at least 1 rushing touchdown, which is nice, but he hasn't had the most yards or even the most rushes in a lot of cases. So it's a toss-up. I think his play is certainly improving, so I say start him. I also don't have a ton of faith in the Cardinals defense, but
Exactly.
it is debatable if you have consistently more reliable running backs on your roster, then it's a tough call. But I think he's a starter.
All right, and now
can we talk about the Cardinals real fast?
Of course.
Yeah,
they've only been doing so well this season based off talent alone. Cliff Kingsbury does not know how to coach a football game. I'm sorry. I'm sure he's a nice guy. He cannot coach a game, especially in the clutch. He cannot do it. I have Kyler Murray in all 3 of my fantasy leagues. I've watched a good amount of Cardinals games. that man cannot coach. The Cardinals get by off talent alone. I swear,
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. And if they do, it's just, I don't know. They got to just rely on talent. Just Kingsbury's not it. I'm sorry, Cardinals fans, but.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, Kingsbury, it was the weirdest coach signing I've ever seen a couple of years ago. I don't know what his prior position was. It was assistant coach.
I think.
Yeah. Okay.
I think he was head coach at Texas Tech, and they didn't even do too well.
Yeah, no, they didn't.
No, crazy seasons.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was a super weird sign-in, and I agree. Kingsbury, he might get a bit too much credit because of how good the Cardinals are, but yeah, I don't know. I don't even see them making the playoffs above, say, the Vikings right now, just because they're poorly coached and managed, and Murray can't do it all. That's been shown a couple of weeks here and there. He's great in fantasy, but doesn't mean the team's going to win the game.
You need more than just one guy to be able to win a game.
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, I think a big reason why they hired Cliff Kingsbury was because that was the year that the whole NFL was in love with Sean McVay, because I think they hired Kingsbury after the Rams had went to the Super Bowl. So a lot of teams were in love with the young, possible upstart coaches. So they hired Cliff Kingsbury.
The offensive minded.
Exactly. Same with the coach on Green Bay. I don't remember his name off the top of my head.
Matt
That's
LaFleur.
a big reason. Yeah, Matt LaFleur. That's why they hired all those young guys. Now, again, let's move on to another wide receiver, Devontae Parker. He's been up and down this season, and this week he's going up against Kansas City. Kansas City, me and Matt were talking about. Everybody knows who listens to the podcast. Matt's a big Kansas City fan, and Kansas City has a decent pass defense, but in general, their defense isn't great. Right now, I would say Devontae Parker's on track for a good game. He had only 7 points last week against Cincinnati. Before that, he had a 19 and 18-point game. So against Kansas City, I'm personally taking Devontae Parker. If you, as a flex, I'm not making your starting wide receiver unless you have a really big league. But if you have between a 8 and 12 person league, I'm throwing Devontae Parker in as a flex. Chris, what do you think?
Well, come back to me in a second.
All right, Matt.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I mean, I talk all the time about how I don't love the Chiefs defense. It's a love-hate relationship, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they are ranked almost number one against pass defense, which is good because I think Tua might be a little overrated now. He hasn't had the best numbers in his 5 starts so far. But I don't know. It's a tough debate. I say Devontae, he's still projected to get 15 or so points, which I think is a lot for him and for going against the Chiefs defense. He hasn't had the most points all year, most targets. I still say sit him, even with the high projection overall. It's tough. This is a bit of a weird one because you think the Chiefs defense is bad, but their pass defense is actually good.
Okay, Quint, what do you think?
Well, Tyrann Mathieu will do that to a defense.
Yeah, it's true.
So I am kind of bought into the whole Tua thing. His results may not have been too hot so far, but I am fully bought in on Tua. I wouldn't start him against a guy like Tyrann Mathieu and the rest of the Chiefs defense, but I'd agree with Tyler. I'd say he's a very, very good flex option.
Okay, Chris, come back to you.
I'd say sit him. I mean, maybe a deep flex, but I don't really trust Tua against the Chiefs D. I trust the Miami defense against the Chiefs offense.
Yeah.
I think maybe, but
yeah, it's tough because again, we never really think of the Chiefs defense as good, minus maybe Tyrann Mathieu, there you go. And a couple other big names, but as a unit, they're not consistent, not that good. It's this is really a big debate on this one, I think. And it shows we got 2 startums, 2 situms between the 4 of us. So
yeah, we do. All right, now Matt, you want to talk about this one? Steelers wide receivers.
Yeah, so Steelers wide receivers, it's interesting. I think ESPN made a video on this. Their value might be going down a little bit, at least Chase Claypool's, I think their video was. But yeah, I mean, the Steelers, they just came off their first loss, of course, which makes me think like, oh, they're getting a little worse. They might have been a little overrated, but maybe like they're still good, and maybe they'll play with a little more fire under them now. So will Big Ben be passing it more? Will they rely on James Conner, the running back? I don't know. So it's a good debate. Steelers wide receivers, like there's so many. The really tough part is there's so many options: Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and Juju, and now James Washington. I think his name is right. He's come into the conversation.
Yeah.
It's a
Yep.
toss up as to which one of them is going to get the most targets each week. I think as a flex, a Steeler wide receiver is good, but no more beyond that.
Okay. All right. Chris, who are
So,
you taking for Steelers wide receivers?
Deontay Johnson or Juju.
Yeah.
I
You
think.
not trusting Claypool?
Nah, I mean his productivity has gone down since Johnson came back to the lineup a couple weeks
Yeah.
ago. I mean, part of the Steelers' woes last week. Washington has a really good defense, especially
They
a
do.
pass defense. Like they've stepped it up. Ron Rivera's done wonders for that team. Just like he's really just kind of changed things around just before how it was.
Yep.
But I'd say if I had to pick Steelers receivers, definitely Juju or Deontay Johnson. But Big Ben, he's still got it. He's not as good as he used to be, and he's always playing hurt every year. He's always got some nagging injury. Who knows what it is? But I mean, Steelers are still looking good. They're probably like maybe lose in the divisional or the conference championship. I don't see them going unless their defense absolutely steps it up. But I see them losing to a handful of teams.
I agree. Quint?
It's tough. I sit somewhere similar to Chris, I believe. I mean, if you're in a deeper league, they're a solid option, but you don't know what you're going to get out of them. I think
Yeah.
it's really tough to try and predict who's going to be the best out of all of them.
Yeah. For me personally, I'm actually going to go away from what you guys were saying. I would start Chase Claypool as my flex personally in a deeper league if I have him. Because he has been pretty consistent. Last week, he had a 5-point game, not great against Washington. But I think with Big Ben, he can have a decent game, get you between 10 and 15 points, honestly. So I'm going Chase Claypool as a flex. And I want to move on now. The final one, I'm only going to ask one person this one, start him, sit him. T.Y. Hilton. Chris, you're a huge Colts guy. Starting or sitting T.Y. Hilton this week?
Oh, man. They're playing the Raiders.
Yeah.
T.Y.'s been looking pretty good the last 2 weeks. I think he's back in his groove. Well, part of it you see, he always does well against Houston in Houston, and that's what happened last week. So, yeah, I mean, besides that, he had a good game before, so I'd say he's trending upwards. I would start T.Y. Hilton. Okay. But here's the thing. If Rivers is kind of due for another bad game soon enough. So whenever that hits, it could be this week, could be against the Texans, or most likely it'll be against the Steelers in week 16, which will be for a lot of teams, a lot of leagues, championship week. Mm-hmm. So, I'd say probably against Houston and against the Raiders next 2 weeks, I would start T.Y. Hilton.
All right. I like that. All right. We're going to move on to the next segment of the show. We're going to talk about free agency. I have like 4 or 5. I might not talk about all of them. I have a few free agents that I think people should pick up. I'm just going to start out here. I think Taysom Hill should be picked up. I mean, he's only owned in about 63% of leagues. This is the last week that you can really play him, I would say, because I think the week after that, they're kind of expecting Drew Brees to come back, but I'm picking up Taysom Hill all day.
Yeah. I mean, Hill fantasy wise hasn't been that bad ever since he was the starter. Of course, he had that one awesome week where he was
tight end
eligible. Tight end eligible as a quarterback. I think that gave a lot of people wins, Quint included.
Yep.
Yeah. So, as a quarterback, he's been good, and he loves to rush in the red zone, get the rushing touchdowns. I think he's got a lot of value there, which probably has pissed off some Alvin Kamara fantasy owners, But I like Taysom Hill as a quarterback pickup.
All right, Quinn, who are you going for free agency pickup this week?
All right, I got kind of a weird one.
right.
He's owned in around, I think, 70% of leagues. Noah Fant as a tight end option has
Okay.
a pretty good upcoming schedule for the playoffs. So if you've got someone, I genuinely couldn't name another tight end, but if you're not wholly confident in whoever you've got at tight end, I really like Noah Fant as a waiver pickup.
Yeah, tight end's a hard position in most leagues. It's such a drop off after after 3 or 4 tight ends, and it's just huge drop off from there. Matt, who you going with?
Sorry, I think there's a bit of delay, but
No problem.
Yeah, weird one here. The Seahawks defense, special teams. Let's talk about this.
Okay.
My strategy, and we have a strategy segment coming up later in the show if we have time for it. Every week, if you don't have a good defense, like if you don't have the Steelers defense or Colts defense on your roster or whoever, just take whoever's playing the Jets. Seriously, that's kind of been a strategy for me in a few leagues, and it works pretty well usually. The debate here, because the Seahawks are playing the Jets, is the Seahawks have notoriously had a terrible defense this year. They're improving a bit now. So what do you do? I don't know. I like them. I say pick them up. Seahawks versus Jets just sounds like a blowout to me when I hear it. I don't know. Anyone have a opinion on that?
I think the Jets get their first win this week.
Really?
I can see it happening.
Bold.
Yeah.
Wow,
bold.
take. Could you imagine if the Seahawks lose back-to-back to the Giants and the Jets? I mean,
fire everyone.
The New York Stunner.
Oh my gosh. I mean, at the start of the year, we talked about this on a couple of podcasts. The Seahawks were a Super Bowl favorite, like Super Bowl prediction favorite. Everyone was talking like Chiefs, Seahawks, maybe some other names, Steelers, Seahawks, Packers, whoever, but they were a big name at the start of the year because Wilson was playing out of his mind and they looked great. I think they started 5-0, but yeah, recently it hasn't looked the best. I still say they blow out the Jets because it's the Jets, but I don't know. Anything's possible.
All right, Chris, who are you picking up?
I got a couple. So I got 2 guys. They're both owned in about 80% of leagues, and that is Gallman, as we talked about before, for the Giants, and then Nyheim Hines is also 80%, and then also Latavius Murray.
Okay.
Really?
Latavius Murray, especially for those deeper leagues.
Yeah,
Okay.
Deeper leagues for sure. Murray's an interesting one because he had a massive game against the Broncos.
He did.
I think they just used Murray instead of Kamara because they knew it was an easy win with Kendall Hinton starting at QB.
Yeah.
But Murray, he's been okay. Like, definitely if you are in a big league and you don't have any running backs and he's available, pick him up. He has the potential to get a lot of touches and possibly a touchdown if they just put him in real quick in the red zone.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right,
those are a lot of the touches that Murray ends up getting, though.
It's
true.
true. I'm gonna say everybody, like the rest of the players that I would pick up for some people. Again, mostly deeper leagues, but even 10-person league, these are people that I would think about picking up. J.D. McKissick, 63% of leagues. He's with Gibson out for Washington. That's a good pickup.
McKissick
right there.
this week has got to be one of my biggest dark horses. I think McKissick steps up and has a big game this week.
Yeah. I'm also going Nelson Aguilar because Aguilar is going up against Indy. They don't have a great pass defense, if that's correct.
Yeah, I'll
Chris,
toss a few names too.
and
after you, Chris.
Yeah, kind of.
So I think Aguilar can have a good game. He's only owned in about 36% of leagues. And finally, a big could be a big pickup is David Moore. He's only owned in 4% of leagues. He's on the Seahawks. And obviously you're talking about the Seahawks going up against the Jets. David Moore has had a few decent games, and I think this could possibly be the game where Wilson is able to kind of turn things back on a little bit. So I'm saying David Moore is the really, really like, if you need help, David Moore would be a free agency pickup as well. Matt, who are your free agency pickups?
Well, another name I have to toss out there is Corey Davis. Yep. Because a ton of people or a ton of leagues, I think he was, on free agency or the waiver wire. But after that game he just had with almost 200 receiving yards, I don't think any league is going to not pick him up. So pick him up. If you haven't thought of it already, I just kicked my desk. That hurt. Damn. That's the enthusiasm I put into, though. Pick him up. Like, please. And another one is Kiki Kuti. I think that's his name. He's on the Texans.
Yeah, with Fuller out too.
Done for the year.
Yeah.
Kuti, he's he's going to get a lot more targets, and it showed last week. I can't remember who they played. Houston. Oh, yeah, there you go. I mean, yeah, Kuti had 140 yards, I think, and that was his first game. Of the year, getting more than just a couple targets and getting more than 4 fantasy points. He had a bunch, so Kuti's a good one. And why not pick up Larry Fitzgerald if he's on, waivers? Because he's Larry Fitzgerald. That's all.
Okay. Quint, do you have any other free agency pickups?
With mixing out, and I've got a take on this later. With Joe Mixon out, I love Giovanni Bernard.
Okay.
I think he's a really good option, again, especially in your deeper leagues. I think he's going to be someone that will definitely be able to do some work for you.
Okay. Chris?
Alan Lazard, the Packers.
Really? How come?
He was doing pretty well before he was out with injury early on in the season, and I think they're playing Detroit this week.
Yeah.
So I think this kind of lines up for maybe. I think he could be at least a little bit productive if you need him, like a deep flex.
Okay.
I think it's kind of situational, but I think he's definitely worth like a look. Definitely worth a pickup.
Mm-hmm.
I picked him up a while ago, back when he was on IR, just to hold on to him.
Yeah, not a bad pickup.
Yeah, I got one more too. This could be a dark horse or a pickup. Zach Ertz. So he came off IR. Now I know he had a pretty bad start to the year based on expectations, but say he becomes Zach Ertz again. Expectations are low right now for him. If you got room in your bench, just pick him up, see if he becomes the tight end we've known him to be.
Yeah. All right. Now this next segment is kind of similar to free agency. I'm talking about some dark horses here in this week. I have 3 dark horses this week. Tyler Boyd, he's on the Bengals. Everybody was expecting him not to do as good without Joe Burrow. He's been great without Joe Burrow. I mean, a big reason why is because he had like an 80-yard touchdown or something like that. But still, whoever they have in quarterback, I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea who the quarterback is.
Brandon Allen, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna trust Tyler Boyd. I'm going Antonio Brown as a dark horse because Mike Evans right now, I believe he's questionable for this week. And if this is only if Mike Evans misses this game, Antonio Brown for sure, because Antonio Brown would be the number 1 receiver, I think, without Mike Evans. And my third one, this is going to sound kind of weird, is Tyler Lockett. Lockett's been super inconsistent this year because DK Metcalf. But I'm going Lockett as another dark horse because
he's against the Jets.
I think Wilson is going to be spreading the ball around, and a lot of the wide receivers are going to be getting some. Matt, who are your dark horses?
Yeah, Tyler Lockett. That's it. No, I'm kidding. I'll start my list off with another NFC West wide receiver, Brandon Ayuk on the Niners. That's his team. I think he's been underrated this year, not talked about a lot. I'm trying to find him on.
I picked him up for a little bit in one of my leagues when 49ers were decimated with injuries, and he did pretty well.
Yeah. They were decimated.
Poor team.
They still are a little bit. Even with some of their guys coming back, and without Garoppolo, I mean, Garoppolo's not much better than Nick Mullins, I don't think, honestly. But Brandon Ayuk, he's had really great fantasy production the last 4 games, around probably I think averaging around 20 points a game, and that's not looked at a lot. He's still, even ESPN projects him to only get about 12 points again. I think he could get another 20 piece easily. So big dark horse there. And also Melvin Gordon, which is a bit weird to say because that's a big name, but he's
People
had a down
forget.
year. Yeah.
People
He's-
forget he exists.
They do.
I know. Yeah, I mean, it's I guess easy to get forgotten about in Denver at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, he just had a big game. It was actually against the Chiefs. He had like 130 rushing yards. And I think he's against another bad team this week. Hold on. He's against Carolina, who has almost the worst ranked rush defense. So there you go. I mean, Melvin Gordon could have another 100 yards rushing.
All right, Chris, do you have any dark horses this week?
Oh, this week I got some for the season possibly. I think people should start looking at Sterling Shepard, especially in those deep leagues. I'm in a deep league. I'm in like a 14-team league.
Yeah.
I think Sterling Shepard is definitely someone you want to take a look at.
Mhm.
I think DJ Chark could have a good game this week.
Yeah.
He's going against the 30th ranked pass defense in the Titans. So I would kind of have high expectations for him personally.
Yeah.
Do those expectations get ruined a little since it's Mike Glennon at quarterback, or?
You know, maybe a little, but I mean, he can still throw a ball pretty deep, and Chark can still catch. So I think he's definitely he's definitely a dark horse, you know?
Exactly. And Quint, any dark horses for you?
All right, I got a couple of takes actually, not some dark horses.
All right.
All right. So Joe Mixon, if/when he comes back, I'm gonna say he's one of the top 5 running backs in the league when he comes back.
All right.
Okay.
Justin Herbert has an incredible playoff schedule, and I think he's gonna be QB5.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then I'm actually gonna say Mike Evans is gonna be one of the top 3 receivers in fantasy at the end of the year.
I think I agree with the Mike Evans one. I agree with that because
I got faith in him.
Receivers, I think
I got faith in him.
Yeah, fantasy receivers, yes. Overall, like stat receivers, no. The reason why he'll be a top fantasy receiver is because all he does is catch touchdowns from Brady. He's already, I think, second or third, for the amount of touchdowns caught in one season by Tom Brady. Number one, obviously, is Randy Moss. Randy Moss caught literally half of Tom Brady's touchdowns in 2007. And this season already, Mike Evans has like 13 touchdown catches from Brady. So I totally agree with that. All right. Finally, we're going to wrap things up here with any strategies heading into the playoffs for you guys. Let's start with Chris. Chris, do you have any interesting strategies with playoffs coming in?
Honestly, I can't even think what I've been doing. Just kind of base your flex off matchups, really.
Yeah.
You don't want to see, you know how ESPN has like the red, gray, and green for the opposing defense. I say try to avoid a red as best as possible and shoot for the green. But I'd say that's kind of it. I mean, it's a little too late for any trade strategies, but I made sure I traded for Steelers D in like another one of my leagues. I traded like the Chiefs D for them or some kind of garbage trade. But just kind of I just kind of make sure like what the playoff matchups are. And just kind of go ahead and take a look and see who's going to play who and what's going to happen.
Quint, you got any interesting strategies coming into playoffs?
I think my 2 biggest things are definitely, like Chris said, play the matchups, especially in playoffs. It's going to be so crucial. If you're not putting yourself in the best situation to, I guess, win, then you won't. It's simple as that. Outside of that, watch waivers, because this will be when a lot of people are going to get frustrated and they're going to start like Nathan Peterman at quarterback, or this is when you're going to have those guys, like especially this week, this is when you're going to have those guys put out the joke lineups.
Yeah.
So watch waiver wires. I think in one of my leagues, the one that I'm facing the number 1 team in, I was able to get Justin Jefferson off of waivers somehow.
Wow.
That's
Wild.
That's crazy. Matt, you got any interesting strategies?
Well, I would love to see. I'd love to see Pete start Jameis Winston. That'd be great. But on a real note now, strategies. I've been doing this one all year. Honestly, it's a bit of an evil one. I don't know how many people actually do this, but if you have room on your bench, pick up good players, even if you don't need them. And the reason is to keep them off of your opponent's team. Now, you could play to just in general, like pick up the best free agent that there is, or let's say you could see that your opponent is hurting for a running back, and there's a good running back, say like Carlos Hyde on waivers, something like that. If like Chris Carson's out, just an example, because this happened earlier in the year. Pick him up so that your opponent can't, something like that. So yeah, just simple stuff. Pick up the good players, even if you don't need them. It's evil, but sometimes it works.
That's smart. I have a couple interesting strategies, mostly for my 8-person league that we're in. I'm actually facing Matt these next 2 weeks, first round of playoffs. I am keeping two quarterbacks on my roster. I have both Tom Brady and Lamar Jackson, because whoever had Lamar Jackson dropped him because he was out that one game because of COVID. And I just decided to pick him up because why not? Quarterback is the most important position. Quarterback tends to be the player a lot of times that can get you the most amount of points on your team. So for the next few weeks here, I'm going to go depending on matchup, whether Brady or Lamar have the best matchup. Another weird one that I'm going with is, and again, 8-person league, is I'm keeping 2 kickers on my team right now because we're at the point in the season with playoffs that you need as many points as you can get, obviously. And if I have a kicker that has a better matchup, I'm going to go with that. I have 2 of arguably the top 3-5 receivers in the league. I have Rodrigo Blankenship and Sanders. Hold on, what's his
I
full
thought
name?
you were saying Blankenship was one of the receivers. I'm like, oh hell yeah!
and Jason.
What type
Jason
of trick
Sanders.
plays they doing there?
Jason Sanders on the on Miami. So they're 2 of the best kickers in the league. And so I'm going based on matchup right now. I mean, this week I'm starting Sanders because he's going up against Kansas City. I think there's more of a chance for Miami to stall out and get field goals opposed to the Colts and Las Vegas. I think Las Vegas is going to be the Colts are going to be getting more touchdowns. So that's what I'm doing. And the last thing that I'm doing is just like you guys said, paying attention to matchups, and I'm picking up defenses depending on matchups. I'm not keeping a single defense on my team. I'm just going based on matchups when it comes to defenses these next few weeks.
Yeah, same thing. Unless you have the Steelers defense or like the Colts, just switch out your defenses.
Yep. Any final thoughts, Chris, Quint? Anything you guys have on fantasy going forward?
Going forward, I mean, best of luck to everybody who's in the playoffs. Quint, I know that you're not in our, in our collective league. I'm not too sure why, you're here with the 3 guys in the playoffs, but hopefully this comment won't end up hurting me.
Burning him, man.
I'll make sure to get a clip of that.
Can we talk about how there's a certain gentleman in our league who had an 8-0 start, and he's since finished 8-5. I just want to put F's in the chat for that. Pour one out
Send
for
our
him.
condolences, man.
That's tough. You start out 8-0 and you lose 5 straight. We keep
joking that his fantasy team is the Patriots of last year. Started out real hot, then all of a sudden just showing the true colors.
Yeah,
fell off the face of the earth.
It's not a good look, honestly.
It's not. Well,
tough scene.
Yeah, and my ending note. If nope,
not gonna do it. All right,
toss this out.
All right,
nope, still going. Out of everyone in this group, I am 11-2. So there you go.
Yep. If you're gonna listen to anyone, listen to Matt. Matt has the best record out of everybody in this group. But now that's gonna do it for us this week. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Make sure to like us, follow us on all social medias and everything, and we will see you next week on the Sports Degenerates podcast.